Good day everyone. Today we're diving into Module 5, Prototype Development and MVP, a crucial stage in our Ignite Tech's journey of a building entrepreneurial leaders. If you look back at our entire journey, so we're moving from problem identification and solution ideation into tangible phase of building and testing. This is where our ideas start to become reality. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand the core concept of prototype and MVP, appreciate their features and benefits, and know how to choose the right types of prototype for your solution. Most importantly, you'll begin to develop your own prototype and learn to take an iterative, user-centered approach. Core concept in this module is prototyping, types of prototype, and MVP. Let's start with the concept of a prototype. So, what is common between these? Clay model of a car, building model to scale, app wireframe, hardware assembly. So, these are prototypes. So, simply put, a prototype is a primary version of a model of a product or service or process. It is a low-cost, quick way to represent a solution. So this is an example of our prototype. So the shoe pad is contain a piezoelectric, so that's why can that's generate electricity, and the shoes is for storing energy. So why should we dedicate time and resources to developing prototype? While it can sometimes take time and be expensive, so prototyping help us achieve several key goals: easy detection of missing functionality, getting clarity in usability, look and feel, aligning the team on a shared vision, better understanding of customer needs, and reducing rework later in the development process. So types of prototype. So prototype come in many shape and size. The type you choose depends on what you need to test. For example, paper prototype. Physical prototype using paper cutouts, enabling quick and interactive testing of user interface and workflow. Wireframe. Show actual user interface element and interactive features similar to the final solution. Device mockup, an early version of physical or electronic product to represent core functionality and size. So, role play and simulation. Effective model for creating service prototype, allowing stakeholder to experience service in a controlled environment. And lastly, storyboard and scenarios. Visualizing user's journey or service interaction, cap- capturing key step and interaction. Concept introduction of MVP will be discussed with my member, JM Estenzo and Kenneth Lucero.
An MVP is not a prototype, it's not a partial or substandard solution, it's not our finished solution. A minimum viable product or MVP. In business and product development, a minimum viable product is a version of new product that has just enough core features to be usable by early customer who can then provide feedback for future product development. And MVP development refers to process or creating a minimum viable product, which is the most basic version of a new product that is functional enough to be released to early customers. First, define the core problem and target audience. Start by clearly articulating the single most important problem of your product will solve. Second, problem statement. What main function are you addressing? Second, the user persona, who is the specific early adapter or customer experiencing this problem. Third, the value proposition. How does your product uniquely solve their problem better than alternatives? Validation. The primary purpose of an MVP is to gather the valuable feedback to make informed decisions regarding future iterations. And the purpose of validation is to gather, validate, learning to inform the decision of either if the value is validated but users request improvement or discover usability issues. You add or refine features for the next version of users. Don't engage or the core problem is not being solved. You just must either change your core assumption or stop development to avoid wasting resources. Overlap of minimum and viable. The term of MVP often gets misunderstood. People to focus to the minimum part and think it means cheap, fast, or unfinished, but an MVP is so much more than that. Minimum product. Let's look at the circle on the left. Label. Minimum. They represent a product that is simply unfinished. Maybe it was rushed, maybe it's just a set of random features, but the key is that no customer needs or wants it. It fails to solve a real problem. This is a product that we avoid building because even though it's minimal, it has no real business. And the viable product. Now look at the circle on the right, labeled viable. Represents the ultimate goal, the final product that has startup eventually wants to build. It has all the bells and whistles. It's highly polished and solves the problem perfectly. However, building this first is usually too expensive, to the time consuming, and carries too much risk. We might build this beautiful final product only to find out we misunderstood the market entirely. And the sweet spot MVP. The magic happens right here in the overlap of the two circles. The MVP, the minimum viable product, isn't just about being minimal, and it isn't the final product. As the graphic clearly state, the MVP is a product that is good enough to solve the core problem of a select set of customers or early adopters. It's the smallest set of features that delivers a maximum value to the customer right now. It must be viable enough to be built quickly so we can learn from real users. The MVP is not the minimum product, it's the maximum learning with the minimum efforts. It allows us to prove our core business hypothesis before we invest the time and money required to build a full final viable product. Building MVP. This slide captures one of the most fundamental concepts in product development: how to properly build a minimum viable product or MVP. And the wrong approach is focusing on features or product type. We have two examples here marked with a red X that show us what not to do. The first row demonstrates the trap of focusing individual features. Points to row 1. We start with a single wheel with chassis or partial body, finally a complete car. The problem at stages 1, 2, and 3. The customer has nothing functional or usable. They can't drive the wheel and they can't drive the chassis and get no value until the very end. The feedback they give at each stage is likely to be useless because they aren't using a product. The second row illustrates the trap of thinking an MVP means releasing completely different product just because it's simpler. And point to row 2, we have start with a scooter, then a bicycle, a motorcycle, and finally a car. The problem is our goal is to build a car. The customer who wants to go 100 miles with their family won't be helped by a scooter or a bicycle. While these are all transportation they don't deserve, the core need that our final product is meant to solve an MVP must still serve the customer's core need. The right approach is delivering value from day one. The third row marked with a green check mark show us how to build minimum viable product correctly. The focus here is on delivering a functional, valuable solution at every stage. Point to step 1. Our very first step, the MVP, isn't a partial car. It's a functional pickup truck or a basic car. Has a wheels, an engine, and it can transport people and goods from point A to B. It's viable, it meets the core customer needs for transportation immediately. The value the customer is using the product, so the feedback is we get is real and actionable. They can tell us the engine is too weak or the seats are uncomfortable. Step 2 and 3, we then iterate and improve. We might add a cabin in key, increase comfort, or enhance performance, moving from a pickup to a basic sedan. Step 4. Finally, we have arrived our fully featured dream product, the sport car, but we did so by building on a foundation that always provide value. Key takeaway. The core lesson here is this: an MVP is not about minimal features. It's about maximal learning. We must always release a product that is viable, meaning it satisfies the core user need. If a user wants to drive, you have to give them something they can drive, even if it's not the final fancy model. This is how we ensure we're building the right product for the right customer by constantly testing our hypothesis with real-world function solution.
So, are there real startup examples of developing MVP? So, we have two examples of developing MVPs, the Zappos and Redbus. The Zappos. The founder of wanted to test if people would buy shoes online instead of a complex e-commerce platform. His MVP was simple. He, he took photos of shoes from local stores and posted them and manually bought and shipped them when an order came in. So the focus was on validating the core hypothesis: will people buy online? So the Red Bus, their MVP was simple: website partnering with a few bus operators to list schedules and set availability. So this minimally functional solution solved their major pain point of booking tickets without going to a physical bus station. So the focus was on validating the core needs is the demand for online bus booking. Differences and similarities of prototype and MVP. Prototype tested by internal team, low to medium fidelity, and goal validate design. So the MVP validate with target users, high fidelity, and goal product customer fit. So their similarity is validate hypothesis before committing significant resources to full-scale development, enable to iterative development, and last, minimize the initial investment in terms of time and money.
This progression aligned with the technology readiness level or TRL system. A prototype move us from TRL 3 to TRL 5. which is the small scale prototype and large scale prototype. So that's all for the module 5 and lesson 1, which is the overview of prototype and MVP. Thank you.